Previously on your favorite episode.
She pulls Hector the Well-Endowed.
Hello, folks, and welcome once again to your favorite episode, the show where we talk to comedians, guests, and really whoever feels like talking to us about their favorite episodes of TV. It's not a very subtle show and is easy to follow along to. Today, we are going to be talking to comedian, Italian, therapy enthusiast, lover of cringe, and all-around awesome human being, Cavanagh, about her favorite episode of TV, which is actually a two-part episode, the season 3 two-part Christmas episode of the original Office UK. The Office UK began in 2001 and featured Ricky Gervais and Martin Freeman in the roles that would later be made famous in America by Steve Carell and John Krasinski. Filmed in 2003 after the original 2 seasons of The Office UK, which was all that it had, with a total of 12 episodes in all, before this two-part Christmas episode. And in that time, they covered most of the storylines that appeared in the American Office. This was also, 2003 was also something that is sort of relevant to the culture of The Office. It was the beginning of the Do Not Call registry. And the Do Not Call registry was supposed to be the beginning of the end for telemarketing, which was kind of the entry-level office job at the time for a lot of people when this came out. However, the Do Not Call registry did not work. So office jobs and telemarketing have continued. Now, this was this two-part episode was a Christmas special. So, of course, it has absolutely no references to Christmas or Christmas cheer, which I have to say I found deeply appreciative, or I was deeply appreciative to find. Martin Freeman would, of course, go on to take on many famous roles, including the first season of Fargo, the Bilbo Baggins in the Hobbit trilogy that should have been one movie, and the CIA agent in Black Panther that you all forgot was in there until I mentioned it right now. Sit back and enjoy our conversation with Tara Lee Cavanagh about the two-part Office spectacular.
TV rots your brains.
That's absurd. TV only softens the brain like a ripe banana.
Television. Much of our future depends on the way we use this medium of communication.
Where in LA are you?
I'm in Hollywood, so you might hear various helicopters and sirens. As we record.
that's the idea. I lived in North Hollywood.
Oh yeah.
For a bit, 20 years ago. So I don't know. Is the traffic still bad? I guess that's the only thing I remember.
Yeah, but when I lived in Orlando, I lived in downtown proper and commuted to Disney. So I now have a job that's 10 minutes away on like a beautiful, like my whole commute is like a really pretty residential street. And it's like a breeze.
Wow. That's okay. That is not the usual LA arrangement though.
I know. It's just going from Hollywood to Atwater down. Like this is the most LA shit is talking about my routes.
I know. That's
I'm not gonna do it.
That's all we did. That's it. That was the whole thing. I was just straight down Sherman Way. I lived on Lancashire, and my job was right down Sherman Way in Van Nuys, but it was, an hour and a half because you're just sitting in traffic for that long. And then I moved to Echo Park.
Eagle Rock?
No.
Echo Park.
Echo Park. And then
Echo
my
Park
job
is big coins now. You need $2 million to get a house in Echo Park.
God. Oh no, I know. It all is. I don't think I could get into my apartment in North Hollywood now. I'm just like, it's crazy. But you're doing it. How long have you been out there?
In May the beginning of May. It'll be 4 years.
Wow. All right. You've done better than I did. I ran away in a year and I won't go back unless they let me have a flamethrower and, unlimited use.
I love
Trevor,
it.
Yeah.
Trevor, how we had Ken Miller on, and he's like the godfather of Orlando comedy. Like, I think Tara is like the mama bear of all of the Orlando comics who have moved to Los Angeles.
To Los Angeles. So you've taken in like the Poopos and the did Clayton never get out there?
I have not. I haven't been in touch with Clayton because he fell off the radar and then came back, I guess.
Yeah.
And I never knew Nick, but I know Ray Reyes and Ben Brainard. I gave them the hard sell when they visited.
There you go.
And you got a Feeney over there too, right?
I do have Tom Feeney. Oh, wow, what a handsome man. Good boy.
Oh.
Doing great.
He's such a sweetie. He is.
I
talked to him the other day. I'm so
happy
proud
to hear
of
that
him.
he's doing great.
He's doing really well. And Joe Chapowski is out here with his beautiful
fiancé,
Nikki.
I love Joe.
Yeah, they came here at the same time we did. And Joe is flourishing. I have not seen him cover his eyes with his hair since we moved.
Okay.
Beautiful. And
that's why we're coming in November.
Yay! And Joe is now hosting his own open mic every Tuesday at Acapulco Goldies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
cool,
so he's
man.
doing great.
That's really good. That just makes me really happy. Joe was amazing. Joe was really good. Joe had some of the funniest shit I ever heard. And I love Tom. And Tom is also one of the funniest guys, and so on. And I'm glad to hear he's doing well, because Lord knows there were times that people around here were worried about him.
I mean, same.
But yeah, right. I don't think I'm like revealing anything. Like, I'm just saying.
Orlando is very drunk friendly.
Yeah. It encourages. What else are you doing here? It is very much the thing. But and he was coming down from Atlanta a lot for a little while. He was up in Atlanta and coming down. Tell him say hi to his dad for me. And so I'm gonna claim like this is my one bit of like Feeney fame is he has a joke that's based on me. That's where he's like, so my dad was a congressman, and he's like, it's weird to meet people who knew your dad and who liked your dad and who were like, yeah, man, I know your dad. He's a real good guy. I voted for him and so on. And he's like, that's odd. But it's even weirder to meet guys who hate your dad. Like he's like, I know one guy who, when he figured out who my dad was, he went, oh my God, I know who you are. I fucking hate your dad. And he was like, oh, why? Did he not let you watch Rush Hour 2 either? And so it's a great bit. It's a really funny bit. I was really happy with the joke. And yeah, it was based on me going, fuck, I know your dad. I fucking protested your dad. Like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know why it didn't occur to me that the name was the same thing, but you're very far from your dad. But I do. I love the guy, and please say hi.
Absolutely.
So let's dive into the office here. So I have sort of a what am I going to say? A route that I'm going to go with the information, with the questions here as I lay this out. So. The only thing that I will say is this all works very well when you have more to say, and I can just throw you things and you can go on them. The only thing that I will ask is that in the beginning, when I'm just asking you like the preliminary information, try not to get ahead of the questions that I'm going to ask you, which I'm sure you're going to want to do.
It's gonna be super
but you
hard
have
for
no
me.
idea what's coming. So it's, I know that's how it's going to go. But anyway, but let's just start with this. First of all, explain to people, pretend for some reason there's some guy who's, been in a coma and he has just never even heard of this thing. What is the office? What is the office UK here as we now have to refer to it?
Well, lucky for us, we have our frame of reference. We have the Office American version with Mindy Kaling and John Krasinski and BJ Novak and Steve Carell, which was born as a remake of the UK Office, which premiered in 2001 on the BBC. It is a dreary, drab, mockumentary style sitcom about just a bunch of townies just trying to get through the day in harsh lighting, and really the special bonds that people with nothing in common form with each other at work.
Yeah, that's a really great description. The bonds that people with nothing in common with each other form at work, which again is actually one of the last moments of this particular special that we're going to talk about.
Of course,
is that definition of what's going on there. That's the general premise. Give me a rundown of the characters. Who are the main characters of The Office UK? Give me their American counterpart equivalents, but don't yet tell me the differences between them. Just tell me who is the thing. Yes? Okay.
Okay. So the show was created. The showrunners, the writers are Stephen Merchant and Ricky Gervais. And Ricky Gervais plays David Brent, who is the equivalent of Steve Carell's Michael Scott.
So he's the boss, right?
Yeah, he's the boss. He is the boss that is more concerned with being liked than running the actual company. Which we've all known someone like that.
Oh yeah. Sure.
Tough, sometimes punishing to talk to, but at heart a sweet person who just, as all of us, just wants to be liked and loved and appreciated for who they are. Okay. We also have Dawn Tinsley, who is played by Lucy Davis. She is the receptionist, and her American counterpart would be Pam, who is played by Jenna Fisher.
Right.
Dawn has an unrequited kind of situation, like love situation with Tim, who is played by the wonderful Martin Freeman, who's hilarious, who invented looking into the camera for a moment to make a moment. I mean, amazing. And his counterpart in America would be John Krasinski, Jim. So like Jim, Pam, Tim, Dawn, like they kind of kept everything on the level. And then you also have the ancillary. Oh, then you have everybody's favorite from America is Dwight, played by Rainn Wilson. His British version, which is the one we're going to be talking about, is Gareth, played by the hilarious Mackenzie Crook. You might recognize him from Pirates of the Caribbean as the pirate whose eyeball fell out all the time. He provided a lot of levity and like comic relief.
Master Getty. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Anyway, go.
Yeah, and he is he has the exact same relationship with Tim that Dwight has with Jim. It's just constantly being antagonized, and he also fancies himself, a master of combat, and is like very much loves structure and discipline and being told what to do, while also being emotionally terrorized by Tim's jokes every day and pranks. Then you have your ancillary characters that make up the rest of the office. Like in the UK, we have Keith, who is a big, imposing, slow talking, slow moving, but never speaks without saying something absolutely fucking hilarious. Just like in America, Kevin. We also have, there is, I wonder who would be, I guess, so we have Neil Godwin, who is played by Patrick Baladi. And his equivalent, I guess, in America would be, he's the boss that when there's a merger, he is the new boss. Like he is above David Brent. In America, I guess that would be, there were several people that kind of, I feel like, filled that.
Is that Ed Helms or something? Like, is that the post?
I would say he is. Ed Helms was like below Michael Scott.
Okay.
I guess.
I don't know. I didn't watch the show.
Oh, I guess he would be Robert California. Was that his name? Played by the very sexy yet aging strangely
Spader, right?
Yeah, James Spader. I guess because it was Will Ferrell, then it was Spader, and then they actually did bring Ricky Gervais in for a second, but I don't know if that's what he played because there's so much American Office content that it all kind of blurs together. It's not as concise as the UK version. And then we have just like your regular little extra characters flying around the British office, the same way you would have the American. But I feel like in the American version, those characters were way more fleshed out. You had so much more time to spend with them, much longer seasons, many more seasons. And then as the show kind of started petering off and people started getting bigger careers and movies and cast members started leaving or not being able to spend more time, then those characters became more fleshed out. But that isn't really necessarily what happens in the UK office. Right.
Yeah, and we're going to get more into the differences between the UK and the American in a second. I want to go through the story up until this special. There's sort of an arc that takes place, and particularly for Tim and Dawn and for David, seem to have the most serious arcs going into this special. Yeah. So give me a quick rundown of what happened in the previous 2 seasons before we get to how we get here.
So with David Brent, our boss, he is established as there's a class clown in the hierarchy of high school, and then there's the person who's desperate to be the class clown, who's desperate to be charming, desperate to be liked and funny, and just is constantly putting their foot in their mouths. I mean, if you can't watch Curb Your Enthusiasm because cringe comedy and Larry David is too much for you, then you absolutely will be breaking out in hives watching Ricky Gervais in The Office. I mean, he brings cringe comedy to I mean, I'm sure Buster Keaton did or whatever. I don't know. But he is cringe comedy. He brings it to life.
I gotta say, and I'm one of those people who has had to pause. I only just recently started Curb, and I only got I can't remember 6 episodes into it before I was I need to step away from this. I don't.
I'm so jealous that you get to watch it for the first time. I wish I could be you.
Yeah, but it's this is not enjoyable or funny. This is just a terrible thing to see, and I wish that somebody would just tell this man to shut up. But watching this, and again, I'm saying, I didn't watch it, the Office UK previously, but man, they go hard on David.
They punish you. They punish you.
There was just stuff that David did that I was like, my God. But I will say this, where Curb is based on the sort of length of the thing, Curb is based kind of in the Family Guy way of this started being awkward back here, and now it's still going. And that's what Curb really is.
Yeah, whereas it's a fuck up, and then it's a preliminary fuck up, and then the fallout,
and then the fallout just keeps adding and adding. Whereas in this, I will say, David's awkward moments, they'll hit a moment. They'll get a moment, and they'll just nail that moment, and it'll set up this perfect punchline of what he does. I mean, I have to say, not to get ahead of ourselves, but 2 episodes, this is all I've seen. And I was that was really fucking funny. You did, even without knowing the characters, even without being able to have the whole context for everything, which is so rare in a sitcom. Normally you have to have that kind of ingrained knowledge of these characters and these people before you can have that. And I was just that, particularly with David and but also with the others, but I mean, particularly with David, the ability to set up these things. You can see it coming. You can see how bad it's going to be. Then it's worse than that. And then there's an actual punchline, and the way it would hit that and was just absolutely brilliant. But anyway, okay. So so that was David. That was David's sort of setup. How did the show end for David before this? What was the last thing David was doing?
So David, of course, is friendless. Mm-hmm. And the only good friends that he seems to have, his good friend is Chris Finch, played by Ralph Ineson, who is just actually in The Tragedy of Macbeth. And he,
yes, he is.
Yes, and he is David Brent's best friend, but he just antagonizes him and never lets him kind of keeps David below him at all times, is mean to him, is kind of a cruel, disgusting guy in general. So you get the impression that David, in his desperation to be liked, will really just take the scraps from anybody. And that's why The Office is so important to him, because it really is like his home away from home. And you get the idea immediately from the very jump, from the pilot of the show, that this guy is nothing without the people that were forced to be in a building with him. And that were kind of like his built-in family, that like his found family.
Right, exactly.
And then we leave him in the second season. So there's only three seasons. They call them series across the pond. It's season 1, season 2, and then season 3 are the episodes we're talking about. Just 2 episodes. Right. Yeah, the Christmas. They're called like a Christmas special, and it's just 2 episodes. So at the end of the second season, we leave David in the office, or we leave David completely emotionally shattered. He has been made redundant, which over there, we don't really have something like that over here. It's kind of just called getting laid off. But over there's actually a word for it, and it's called being made redundant. It means that you're not fired and you're not really laid off. The company's not doing layoffs. Your position just isn't relevant to the company anymore. So they kind of get rid of the position and in kind get rid of you, but you kind of get like a severance package or whatever. Right. So they're gently letting go of David, because unlike the American version, David's distractions and his obsession with performing constantly for his coworkers or his employees overshadows his job performance in a pretty big way. Yeah, he's not like Michael Scott. Like Michael Scott actually prides himself on being a great salesman. David Brent is, a tough hang.
Yeah. Right. So he gets let go. I know he does let me ask: do we see the scene of him being let go in the?
We do. So there is a school of thought, if you will, where a lot of like pop culture obsessed people believe that the penultimate episode of a season is always going to be much, much better than the finale.
The ultimate episode. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Game of Thrones is like a perfect example of that. Like when Cersei fucking blows up the Sept and goes apeshit and Tommen throws himself out the building, like that is television.
Right. But that happens in like season 6. So it's like the penultimate, it's the penultimate season actually.
Yeah.
It's like where it like was like, that's way better than the finale. That was where that shit should have ended.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we leave David. We actually, in the penultimate episode of season 2, David is pulled into the office. Actually, it's one of like the fun episodes. In the American version, every episode is the fun episode, because production companies think Americans are stupid. So if it's a comedy, it has bright colors and bright lights, and there's got to be a thing. Like we got to go to like a field day, or we got to go to a bar, or we got to do a special day. Like this is one of those rare episodes that they kind of gently sprinkle in. That is Red Nose Day, which over in the UK, it's like a day where you kind of like fundraise for charity or whatever, and you wear a red nose to work, or you make up a little fun thing that people give you money for. So everybody around the office is joking that day. Dawn set up a kissing booth. Like it's meant to be a day of joy. It also has one of the funniest fucking scenes in the entire series, where the boss, Neil, who is so much cooler, so much more handsome, everything David wishes he was, comes in and has like a reenactment of a dance from Saturday Night Fever with Tim's girlfriend. And then David tries to one-up him and does this like absolutely cringe dance. and it is played for silence and nobody is into it, and it's magnificent. So then afterwards he meets up with Neil, his boss, and then in the American version she's played by Melora, I forget her last name, but like the ultimate,
Melora Waters.
Walter.
Yeah.
Walter Waters, yeah.
She is that's, I believe in The Office it's Carol, and she's played by Sandy Hendricksy, and she is like the ultimate like regional boss. And then her and Neil pull David into his office because he's supposed to have a report ready for them that he's been asked of several times, and he doesn't have the report and doesn't seem very remorseful about the fact that he doesn't have it. And then later in the episode he's made redundant, and it is so sad. So the series ends. Does he
like beg or anything for his job? Does he?
Yeah, the series actually ends with like them giving him his final papers to sign. And boy, do the Brits fucking make you work for it. It is so heartbreaking that it's just the most awful fluorescent lighting. He's behind his desk and he's just, his eyes water and his voice cracks. And he says, please don't make me redundant. Don't do it. Don't do it. Like, just gives a last ditch, like begging for his job.
Right.
So sad. So
I wanted that to be here because I know that it comes up later. So that's David. That's where we are with David. And what happens with Tim and Dawn there?
So Tim is like your everyman who just happened to like fall into this job. He's not particularly happy really with anything. He's just kind of coasting along. And the one bright light in his life is Dawn, who is the receptionist. And she's kind of in the same way. Like, she's become complacent with her situation in life. She's a receptionist, but she has these kind of grander dreams of being an illustrator, like an artist. She's also in a very, very long-term, years-long engagement with her warehouse boyfriend, Keith, who's played by Ewan McIntosh, who, like the American version, works in the warehouse and is like a bigger guy and is kind of more like burly and traditionally masculine. And Dawn and Tim kind of have this very, very special, very deep friendship and bond where, and also the characters, I mean, just the actors alone, the chemistry is off the charts. They look at each other from across the room and you are picking up what they're putting down. You can read what they're saying without them even saying anything.
Yeah.
So anyway, we leave Tim and Dawn in an equally bleak situation at the end of the series in season 2. Tim, previously in the first season, like, all this romance is built up, and will they, won't they? Will Dawn leave Keith, and will Tim ask Dawn and finally confess his love, and da-da-da. He does that in the first season. He asks out Dawn. She rejects him because she's engaged to Keith. And then the whole second season, Tim is telling the interviewers, because this is a mockumentary style show, he's telling them that I asked her out as a friend. You know, her and her boyfriend were having difficulties, so I asked her as a friend. Like, it was just a friend. And then in the last episode of the second season, before David is fired, Tim finds out that Dawn and Keith are now leaving England and are going to go to Florida, where Keith has a sister, and they're just going to kind of maybe start over, see how it goes. Real plan.
So that's Keith. That's not Lee.
Oh, no. You're right. It is Lee. I'm so sorry.
Okay. So Lee is the boyfriend from the warehouse. Lee.
Yeah. Okay. Did you catch that, Jackie, and not correct me?
I couldn't remember the name, so I didn't want to
and I was just sitting here going like, okay, I don't know any of the names, so I guess that Keith is some other guy.
Right.
I just couldn't remember.
And then
you're
like,
one.
and then they're going to Florida, and I'm like, boy, she wound up in Florida with this guy Keith too. Like, that's just really weird.
And can I also just say, like, Keith is horny as shit, especially in the last 2 episodes. Like, I feel like everything I see he says is so horny. Okay, I'm go ahead, bye.
And Keith is horny in a way that is like menacing and creepy, not in the way that like Kevin is horny, and where he's just like, you don't know if he has like a head injury or if something's going on.
No. This guy This guy is terrifying. Which I really can't wait to get to that. But the talking about what's going to be at the party.
Yeah. So, and I'm so sorry. So Dawn's boyfriend is Lee, and Lee is played by Joel Beckett, and he is a traditionally handsome, big burly guy. So Dawn and Lee have decided to leave England, go to Florida, and just kind of kick it at his sister's place, doing odd jobs and seeing if they can start a new life in Florida. And they use the same reasons that everybody uses when they move to Florida, is that the cost of living is cheaper and it's always sunny and whatever. Excuse me. And Tim hears this, Tim finds out that Dawn is planning on leaving. In seconds after Neil offers Tim David's job. So Neil offers Tim the boss position, the acting manager position, until they find someone better or, more qualified. And just like in the American version, Tim says, absolutely not. It's not about the money. I don't know what I would spend it on. I don't want it, but you should. He recommends Gareth. So right after finding that out, he finds out that Dawn is moving to Florida and leaving England. And you can see in his interview room, as the producer's talking to him and asking him questions, he's reliving the moment where he asked out Dawn the first time and she rejected him the first time. And he has this impulsive moment where he gets up, the camera's struggling to keep up with him. He runs down the hall. He tells Dawn, I need to talk to you. They go into a meeting room. He takes his mic off. The sound completely cuts out. You're in silence and you're just watching them through these crappy, cheap Venetian blinds, and you can't hear what they're saying. And it really only adds up to maybe 4.5 seconds. I just actually watched it and counted. It's really, really short. And Tim walks out and you see them kind of hug and smile. And Tim walks out. He goes back to his desk and he puts his mic pack back on and says, yeah, she said no. And just keeps going back to work. And it's like another, you're like, oh, like what the fuck? Like, because as Americans, we're used to, and this show aired, this episode that we're talking about in particular, the last episode of the second season aired in 2002. I was in high school. I still hadn't been beat down by, rent and just life and learning about the ins and outs of politics. And I'm thinking every show is going to have a happy ending, right? Like the guy gets the girl, everybody's happy, we're all friends, like tee-hee. And this show just fucking really, really, really rips your heart out.
So this is where I wanted to go next. And I'm really happy that we got to this. So I wanted to know how you watched this. Did you came to the UK office as it was happening? You watched it like
I did.
You watched it as it appeared?
Well, sort of. So my friend Kevin, who is responsible for a lot of my personality, introduced me to a lot of music and a lot of TV. Really special guy. He got me into The Office. He's like, wait, do you see this David Brent character? You have never seen anything like it in your life. You've never seen anything like this on TV. Like, it is the most dramatic shit I've ever seen and the funniest shit I've ever seen at the same time. And it's just going to break your heart and you're going to love it. And it's fairly digestible. There's only 6 episodes a season. There's only 2 seasons. So I believe he ordered the DVDs because this first and second season came out in a special. Because I watched them towards the end of high school. I graduated in 2003, so I was watching them. I remember those DVDs, but then when the Christmas special came out, I could not get my hands on any way to watch them. I had to download the fucking Christmas special, which is 2 episodes, on my parents' Gateway desktop using LimeWire. Yes, using LimeWire, infecting the entire network of computers in my household with disease. Yeah.
Yeah, just destroying your hard drive. Just like, all right, that's gone now.
Wrecking that shit. Yeah. Wrecking it. So that's how I actually watched the Christmas special in my father's office on our enormous Gateway laptop with a bunch of dead deer heads on the wall surrounding me and watching me feel all my feelings.
But that was the only one that you caught. So you caught the special.
Yeah.
After you saw the series after it had aired, but before the special aired.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's so first of all, you saw the UK series before you saw the American series. You weren't.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you talk about that the series. You were in high school when you finished the series the first time, and or the first 2 seasons there, and it just hurt to have them all lose this way, have them just sort of.
You're like, she can't go to Florida. I'm in Florida. What is she doing? Like, I mean, and you can't believe that she's really going to stick it out with this asshole who never listens to her, barely makes eye contact with her, hardly treats her like a human being. She's literally a piece of furniture that's just like his fiance. And Tim, who you love so much, and you love Tim and Dawn's chemistry because they play these jokes together on Gareth, and they always come out on top, and they always crack each other up. And anytime they even make eye contact, the chemistry is just crackling. It is so fabulous, and it just doesn't happen.
So I thought, and again, this is me not knowing the show, I was like, wow. It feels like they made this special entirely to satisfy these fans, and we're going to get to that, of course, eventually. But it feels like it made this to happen. And I'm like, I get the impression that they introduced this Lee guy, like, I don't know, maybe at the end, but like that they didn't really know him or anything. Because in this special, he's only an asshole. Like every second that he's on screen, he's only an asshole. And I was like, that's a really cheap way to like get them back together, is just to have her have been with a guy who turns out to have been an asshole. And so the idea that he was an asshole the whole time.
He's been an asshole because, like the American version, there was an episode in the first season where Dawn and Tim had just made fun of Gareth and like drove him nuts and made him crazy, and they were cracking up, and then Tim goes to hold Dawn and slow dance with her while they're joking and laughing, and he does not see Lee walk in behind him, and Lee gets in between them and like doesn't choke slam him, but puts his hand on his chest and shoves him against the wall,
right, and
then leaves. Like, it's very British. Like, it's not like in America where the guy would have came in and like knocked him the fuck out. Like, he just firmly gives him the threat and leaves. Right. And then later kind of apologizes, in another episode. But he's always been a prick. Always.
Yeah. In real life, like in American TV, we'd have the guy knock the guy out. In real life, an American he either wouldn't say anything and he'd turn around and be like, what the fuck is that? Like, what's going on over there? Or he would say as loudly as he could, what the fuck? And then he'd leave. Yeah. Like, the reality is that I infinitely trust a Brit to go physical way before I trust an American to go physical.
Yeah. Like, and that's also kind of speaking to Lee's character, because he is in the warehouse. He is more of the blue collar, kind of class, I guess you'd say. And whenever he's around the other warehouse guys, as you saw in the Christmas special, they are fucking disgusting. I mean, they are just awful.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Very hyper.
Yeah. So let's get on to let's one more thing about your personal experience with this. Before the special happened, did you wish it would happen? Were you going, man, I wish they would undo the way that ended? Like was that a dream for you?
I think it's actually kind of normal over there for them to wrap everything up with a special. I feel like I did read that at the time, and I was like, this is a weird way to release television, like 6 episodes, because I didn't fucking know anything. So I was like, this is really strange. Just like, you wrote a series, because I of course became obsessed and read every piece of content I could find on the internet and every interview with Stephen Merchant and Ricky Gervais I could find, and they wrote the story specifically this way, and I was like, you can write just 2 seasons of TV, like, if you're a writer, don't you want it to just go and go and go and go for as long as you want? And nowadays, I mean, now that we have streaming and everything like that, like, you can write these concise stories with these very, very specific arcs that have a finite like end and a, like, you know, a starting point, and that's that. Like, just telling a story. It doesn't have to be this open-ended, infinite thing that will eventually kind of disintegrate and lose its magic, the way that I kind of feel like, you know, maybe the American Office did when you could tell Krasinski was making movies, Carell kind of left, and, like, you know, we get to know these other characters, but by that time, is the viewership declining? What are we doing? You know,
American TV, American network TV, and I mean, not to get too into the weeds, you know, with this, but I mean, like, American network TV was always based on the idea of selling ads in the show, and the only thing they care about is, are there eyes on the show, and do those eyes allow the ads to appear every 7 to 6-7 minutes?
Yeah, consume.
Exactly. And so the writing of TV until really, I mean, again, all sorts of things have been written about, but until HBO broke it, the writing of TV was, you know, beholden to this concept that you don't ever do anything that changes anything that would keep viewers from coming on at any point. Viewers have to be able to come on at any point, and they have to. So you can have these arcs if you want, but they've got to be able to be open-ended. They've got to be, you know, whatever. It's got to be Nigel and Daphne, so it goes on for 9 fucking seasons before anything happens. And even after it happens, it still hasn't really happened. We could keep, like, screwing with this for, you know, forever. So, like
I didn't give a shit about Jim and Pam's.
Yeah.
Like, of course you want the wedding. Like, of course you want a wedding.
Sure.
But, like, do I really give a shit that they got pregnant and then, like, they're having another again? Like, you know, Pam's struggling as being a working mom, and then, like, it just, like, they were really just trying to give you an American experience, which was very true. But by that time, I was like, in my mind, the UK office had already wrapped it up so beautifully. Like, you know, let me just use my imagination about what happens to these people.
Exactly. Were people still watching? Okay, well, then we'll keep making it. And that's it. I mean, welcome to year, 33 of The Simpsons. Like, I watch it. I'm there. I've been seeing it since the beginning, and I will watch it all the time. But it is not the same show, and it has, been through long periods of not being any good at all. But,
and people die.
Yeah,
like,
right. And people die. We've lost very few Simpsons cast members, which I deeply appreciate. But
knock on wood.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, knock on wood. But in any case,
I'm sorry. Can you hear my dog?
I can now that you mentioned, not in a bad way. I think that
you're a human person with a human life. It's fine.
Yeah, I think that's a listenable sound. I think
that's my pug Sharona.
We can imagine
I love
how
your pug
cute
Sharona,
so.
and now I am just infinitely happier hearing her. Yeah, no. So it was neat. They wrapped it up, which is very cool. I always think so. The idea of giving it the arc that way. Did they plan to write the special? Because I get the impression that if Ricky Gervais had his way, it would have ended exactly the way it ended in season 2, and it would have stayed that ending. And that BBC was like, please come back and do another one.
Well, I don't think that they expected to even get to the second season, because the viewership was, I don't think, very good for the first. Okay. And obviously it's a bleak show. I mean, it's set in Slough. I don't know if you've been there. I've driven past, and it is a fucking dreary, gray, middle of nowhere. Every building is just kind of like a 90s structure, like a box, like just like, what you would think of like Scranton. Like, okay, well, I'm in a little tiny town with the one bar and the one Applebee's and the one nightclub, like.
I did, when I was seeing this, I was like, Wow, they did choose Scranton just absolutely perfectly, didn't they?
Yeah.
That was dead on the American equivalent, isn't it? Is it's not even quite a steel town; it's next to a steel town.
Yes,
they're
just manufacturing and selling fucking paper.
Right?
Paper!
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh no, all the industrial shit was over there. This is the weird quasi-industrial and marketing of industrial things.
Yeah.
And it's just that's Scranton.
It is what you think of when you think of, for me personally, I've only worked in an office maybe 4 weeks out of my entire life. I'm 37 years old. And the nightmare of just beige walls, 4 of them, Berber carpet, fluorescent lights, and just the fucking hell that is going into that same dead, lifeless space every day. That is what I think of when I think of an office. Mm-hmm. And nothing encapsulated that better than The Office.
And I think that there's another part of this that I do kind of want to make sure that kids understand. And I don't think that they would. But hey, you know how it looks really boring in there? And you're like, but why would it be boring? You're just on your phone all day, scrolling through shit or playing games or whatever. Okay, no. And that's a really, really important factor in this was we used to have to spend 8 to 9 hours a day in a place and there was no distraction for it. And even as recently as 2001, the internet was not as cool as you think of the internet now. So there wasn't a place that just constantly had new stuff on it.
There wasn't even Facebook.
Right. There's no Facebook. There was LiveJournal. I guess you could go read your friends' posts by 2001.
Please don't remind me.
Yeah, right, exactly. But there was nothing there was just none of the real time wasting that we have now. There was, the occasional people would find out oh my God, there's a quiz that can react to your answers and give you different questions, and so on. You're like, wow, that's so cool. But it only lasts 15 minutes. Then you're like, okay, I've done that.
I mean,
now.
They're still sending faxes in this show.
Right. Yeah. Right. They're sending faxes to the show. He has a friggin' Nokia phone. And even that is not everyone has a cell phone in this thing and so on.
Yeah.
He has to get Gareth to do the internet for him.
Exactly. And, I was going to talk about, there are so many moments in this series when I was rewatching the Christmas special. I haven't watched them in years. And I'm rewatching the Christmas special. And I'm there's a scene where Trudy, who's kind of the office tart, she's reading a sexy horoscope from a women's magazine to the girls, or the people around her in the finance department or whatever. And I was holy shit, I forgot about read me my horoscope. Read me what mine says. Now read what mine says. That was such a moment in time. And just the machinery they're using, the computers that they're using, everything is so dated. And I don't feel like it's been that long. Shit.
For a second, I had a moment where I was looking at The Office and I was going oh, they overdid it on trying to make this look like a 2004 Office. That's, we had better things than that. And then I'm oh, this was shot in 2004. That's just an office at the time. That's not a prop department. But do remember this, and not to give us any sort of props here, but England is ever so slightly behind us on the tech scale, right? So we get tech that they don't have. Their computers are clunkier while ours get thinner. For a bit, they catch up.
Yeah.
But I was in New Zealand in 2007 and their big thing there at the time, this was huge, was they had just gotten their third mobile company. This was because they had a telecom network that was a nationalized telecom network.
It was Vodafone. Vodafone and
Right. I can't remember what the other one was called. It was Tel Service or something. And they were all that. And but my favorite was that they were advertising, this was so big for them, you could get up to 50 texts a month. Was huge. Right. When I landed there And this woman handed me her cell phone, and she said, if you have to make a phone call, like, go ahead and call. And she was like, but please keep it short because it's $1.28 a minute. And I assumed that she thought I would be calling like Florida. And I was like, oh, don't worry. I wouldn't make an international call from your cell phone. And she was like, oh my God, no, don't make an international call from my cell phone. And I'm like, it's $1.28 a minute here, like domestically? And she was like, yeah. And I'm like, how many minutes are in your plan? And she was like, what are you talking about? What plan? And I'm like, if I were to say free nights and weekends to you, and she got like mad. She was like, why would the weekends and the nights be free? That doesn't even make sense. Why would that happen?
I got my first Nokia when I was 16. So it was 2001, 2002. I discovered just fucking with it during math class one day, like, oh, I can send someone like passing a note, but it's message. Digital. Right. Yeah. So I texted my friend. My
parents' cell phone bill up by like, $1,000.
I texted my friend who has the cheapest mother on the planet. And the next day he came into school and was like, my mom says, don't do that.
Don't do
like,
that.
I was like, oh my God.
That was 58 cents.
I totally did something similar when I was growing up, but with collect phone calls. Me and my friend Billy would call each other back and forth collect with the most ridiculous names. And the only one I can remember is Mrs. Lollywoo. We would always call each other back and forth, collect call from Mrs. Lollywoo. We ran up our parents' phone bills so high and got in so much trouble. That's like the worst thing I ever did.
Yeah. And now the only time you get a collect call is from your friend in prison.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was going to say the only time I've ever heard collect call in the last like 20 years was you have a collect call from, and it is a prison. So let's get on to the actual special, though. So when we pick up on this special, it is 3 years later. Now, the framing device of The Office was that there was a camera crew just filming these people in this office. Yeah. And in the British office, my understanding is they were just doing a documentary on day in a life in the office, right? And day in a life in an office of this kind, right?
Yeah, that's the idea.
In the American version, there's a sort of apocryphal. I don't know if this is true. I know this story, but fill me in if you know. There is apparently the original thing that you were going to find out was that the reason they were doing a documentary was because someone at that office had killed themselves like the week before they started. And it was eventually supposed to be revealed that had happened, and that
like
and
a
that,
Twin Peaks,
like
unraveling a mystery.
Revealed that the reason that they were doing this documentary in the first place was to find out what kind of an environment had led to this person killing themselves.
And it was Michael.
And it was supposed to be. They were eventually supposed to like bring this up. They were supposed to have this whole moment where they're like, "Tell us about so and so," and Michael Scott has this like breakdown of like, well, yeah, I didn't think it was that bad, and this kind of thing, and da da da. And they just decided not to do it. Like eventually, they got to the point where they were going to do it, and they were like, okay, well, we don't want to. It's too. We had made this too fun. They had made the
all for the best. All
American and the Office too fun. And this kind of gets to my first difference. This is the thing that I know about the American Office. I've only seen like I said, maybe 2-3 episodes of the American Office ever. So I won't claim to be like an expert on the show, and definitely not one on the UK show either. But I feel like the UK show goes harder on its characters than the American show. I feel like Michael Scott was more of a like lovable idiot that kind of didn't do the right thing, whereas David Brent is like a disastrous sexist, like just monster who does not realize at all how awful he is to every person around him. And like Jim's pranks in the American Office seem like funny little harmless, haha, you didn't know this was, happening, now it's happening. And Tim's pranks feel slightly more severe.
Yeah, I get the impression, maybe it's because they just didn't have all those extra seasons, but I definitely get the impression that Tim genuinely dislikes Gareth.
Right.
Whereas Jim sort of pities Dwight and likes fucking with him, and then they have almost like a big brother, little brother kind of bond.
Right. So, and that's kind of the thing, is that like the American Office seemed to like soften. It made them all much more likable people.
Exactly, because everything has to be plush and soft corners and digestible and keep you coming back. If you notice, well, I know you haven't watched it, but the entire first season of the American Office is almost like a complete shot-for-shot remake of the first season of the UK, and it's bleak and the lighting is terrible and everybody's washed out and fucked up looking. Then they were like, all right, we got to like Americanize this shit. And that's when they put in the pop of color and brightened everything up. And
it's Andy Dwyer season 1 Parks and Rec, Andy Dwyer season 2 Parks and Rec, like just two different people. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like he went from being total asshole that is like ruining this chick's life to, oh, I'm just a lovable little clown that, you know, doesn't know what he's doing.
Totally.
Like, you know, and it really is a fairly different show. Leslie Knope went from being like an inept and bossy and, you know, to being a fully and completely correct and intelligent person who was just a little determined. Like, you know, like that all got worked out. So exactly. in The Office, similar thing. And I did see, because I do remember when the American Office premiered, and I caught a couple episodes because I was really into Steve Carell at the time, and I was like, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I do remember just catching it and being like, yeah, that was pretty funny. And then seeing it later and going, wow, that feels very different from like the show that they started with. Only because, again, it felt much more jokey and soft and whatnot. Whereas like originally, like when I first saw Michael Scott, I was like, wow, that's a good kid. That's an asshole. Like, you know, like let's go with this. And so
exactly.
Yeah. So the UK didn't let up. UK went with this. So 3 years in, the first thing we'd see is that David has become just a fame whore, right?
Yeah, so there is one of my favorite quotes from Chuck Klosterman is, and I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember the exact, but reality TV stars are the type of people who will be recognized in Burger King for the rest of their lives, but they will be eating at Burger King for the rest of their lives. And that's exactly what we're getting with David Brent and his new career.
Right. But
I'm guessing we're going to go, this is going to be a double episode since we haven't even started talking about like the synopsis of the episode yet. So if you want to do the thing that Mickey said and say a thing here, Trevor,
let's do that. Yeah. So let's, are we all good to keep going? Is anyone else?
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. So we can put it in whenever, but essentially we want to have a moment in there that says something to the effect of like, well, we're going to have to make this a 2-part episode because there's just too much to get into here. So I am very, very happy that you're with us, Tara, and we will have you back to talk about the rest of this episode another time.
Can't wait.